What's up, everybody? Welcome to my first ever shop tour, and I'm here to show you that it's not always about the size of your shop, but it's more about how you use it. What's up, everybody? So this is my space, and to be honest, this is not the most efficient shop by any means. I have crammed a lot of machines, a lot of tools in here, and as a result, it's cramped and it's hard to move around sometimes, especially when I'm using the bigger machines. But I wanted to do this shop tour to show you what I've got going on in here, and especially because over the next 6 to 8 months, there is going to be a huge transformation in here, and I kind of wanted to have a record of what it looked like before. So first, let's talk about the space. It is 18 feet wide by 20 feet deep. This is technically a 2-car garage. The unique thing that I had to deal with here was this side wall. Behind this dartboard, there is a prefab fireplace. And if you can look at this picture here, you'll see that I had to work around this boxy looking structure. So this is what I came up with. Had that not been there, this whole wall would be very, very different and much more open. So let's start over here in the middle of the shop, and then we'll work our way around the perimeter. This is my table saw. This is the Powermatic 66. It is old. I bought it used from a friend of mine. This is the first of 3 tools that I bought from that same friend. I paid $1,000 for it, and this thing goes back to, I believe, the late 1990s, and it still works great. The only issue I have with it is that it doesn't have a riving knife, but other than that, it is really something, and this has allowed me to elevate my work to a whole nother level, and this is also when I kind of started the YouTube channel, so this has been a very important part of what I've been doing here. I do plan on upgrading in the next year or two to something new. Not exactly sure what that will look like yet, though. This is my assembly table, outfeed table, workbench. Everything is done on this table. I mean, without this, it would be very hard to do some of the projects that I do. It is amazing to have such a large work surface that is flat, and it just really has made things easier as far as the workflow goes. It also has a ton of storage. It has 12 drawers, 2 cabinet areas. It has a compartment to store my air compressor. I love this thing. I have videos on this. I have plans on this. If you want to check them out, I'll link them all below in the description. This is my Grizzly jointer. It is a 6-inch jointer, and I bought it used from a friend of mine who was looking to upgrade to an 8-inch. It's been really good for me, and when I bought it, I paid about $600 for it, which at the time was a good price because it already had the helical head installed, and I know that in itself is worth a few $100s. I can't complain, except I think, like most of us, you outgrow your tools, and I wish I had the 8-inch because I find myself limited when I'm doing certain projects with this. But I'm happy with it, and if I ever have the opportunity and the space, I would love to upgrade to something bigger. This is one of 2 bandsaws that I have in the shop. This is the bigger one. This is an awesome machine. This is the Grizzly 0513X2F. I don't think they make this exact model anymore, but they're all pretty similar. It is amazing. The only problem that I have really with it is I just don't have as much space as I would like in here, and so when I want to do work with this, and I'm doing a lot of work, I usually like to pull it out into the driveway because I just have more room to maneuver myself. If I'm doing something quicker, I'll usually just pull it out like this because it isn't a mobile base, and it allows me to cut something long without having any kind of interference here. But this is a good machine, and this is really the only large machine that I ever bought brand new in this shop. It is powerful enough to resaw up to 14 inches, and there is 17 inches of clearance here, so you can really push large pieces through here without too much of a problem. The only thing, if I could do it all over again, and of course money wasn't an issue, I have seen the Laguna, and their machines are made better. It's just better quality. You can tell from the kind of parts that they use. And if I could do it all over again, I would love to get my hands on one of those, but that was about twice the amount of money as this, and I just couldn't afford it. But I am very happy with this, and I have no complaints, and I don't think I'm gonna be getting rid of this anytime soon. This is my drum sander, and this thing is awesome. This is the Supermax 2550. What that means is it has an open slot here, which means you can put up to a 50-inch board through this. You could only sand 1/2 of that at a time, but you can pretty much cover any tabletop with something like this. This thing is a beast, and I never would have bought this had I not kind of had the opportunity to get this at a really good price. I bought this from my friend, the same friend that I bought my table saw and my jointer from, and he gave this to me for a ridiculous deal. I think I paid $1,200 for this, and at the time, something like this new was about $3,000, and I couldn't say no. I was actually looking for a drum sander, something about half the size of this, but when this kind of, presented itself, I had to get it. So it takes up a ton of space. I don't use it all that much, but I do anticipate in the future getting a lot more use out of it, especially once I have more time to do more projects in here. Up top is some of my lumber storage. This is really the only space where I can actually store lumber without it really being in my way. These, I believe, are Grizzly lumber racks. They sell the same exact ones on Amazon. I think it's Bora. They cost about the same. They really were fairly inexpensive. It was more value in buying them like this than making my own. And it has really helped me keep things more organized here. It definitely helps. My problem is when I have larger pieces, sheet goods. I don't know what to do with those, and usually I don't keep them in the shop very long because I just don't have the space for it. Whenever I have materials that don't fit up top, I usually stick them somewhere back here, and that works well, but it looks ugly, it's messy, it does mess up my workflow, and this is the reason why I don't usually buy extra material unless I actually know I'm going to use it within a short amount of time. Now, as far as climate goes, very early on when I started this channel, I installed this electric heater, and it has been amazing. It really solved my problems in the wintertime because it gets cold in here. However, I don't have a cooling option in the summertime, at least not until now. This is my new solution to heating and cooling in my workshop. This is the Mr. Cool ceiling cassette. Mr. Cool is the sponsor of today's video. They do make traditional mini split systems, but they also have these. This is their ceiling cassette version. This actually fits right between the joists in your ceiling. Now, if you're not familiar with Mr. Cool, they provide ductless heating and cooling units for the DIYer, which means that if you are handy, you can actually install this yourself. I was a little skeptical at first, but this really is a DIY project. The first thing that you would need to do is use the template that they provide to cut a hole in between your rafters, so that way you can install the air handler. Once the air handler is installed, it's really all about making the connections to the electric and of course the supplied coils that will connect the condenser outside to your air handler. What makes this truly a DIY type of project is that there's no welding or soldering required when hooking up the coils. Mr. Cool found a way to pre-charge the coils prior to installation so that everything is just plug and play. Simply screw the coils into the air handler and condenser. Once you've checked for leaks, all you need to do is open the valves and then of course make your electrical connections. Then once you've done that, just attach the cover to your air handler and you're ready to go. Power it on and enjoy a nice, comfortable room. Now this is the part of the shop that I am most proud of, and this is what I want my whole shop to be. Everything is very organized. There is a system here. I don't always have that everywhere in the shop. So let me first start with the drill press. This is my drill press. It is a 10-inch Wen, and I've been very happy with it. I don't use it all the time, and I don't do metal work yet, so this has been more than enough power for me. I built the base not too long ago. It's basically a cabinet with drawers. Everything that I have in the shop that I've built is also on wheels, so I can wheel it out and move it around if I have to. And this was really a game changer for me. Having this little tabletop here made it so much easier to use this machine. And the cool feature about this that I like is not only does it have a fence and a block here, but you can remove this middle insert here when it gets all beat up, and you can replace it with a clean one, or actually you can just flip it over first and you have a clean work surface to work on. Now I built this base, and there is a video on this base, and it's just basically a cabinet with drawers, really, if you think about it. And I did use some of the materials I had on hand that I wanted to recycle, but basically this is, just my way of staying organized. I have drill bits in here. I have other kinds of drill bits and parts here, everything related to drilling, really. This is just some camera equipment because I had an empty drawer here. This also, some hole saws and things like that, some sanding parts that you can attach to your drill. But the idea is that there's a place for everything. And this has always been something that I've wanted to do in this whole shop. Moving on to the next tool, this is the very popular DeWalt DW735X. The X means that it comes with these extensions. This machine is awesome. You've seen on YouTube, everybody has these things because they're small and they're really good. I do not have the helical head in here yet. Maybe one day that will happen, I'm not sure. The only problem I can think of with this is the location of the dust port. It's right in the middle on the outfeed side of this machine, and it causes all sorts of problems because the hose is in the way when you're feeding your boards through. So if you have this, or if you can get one of these, I would recommend either buying, or if you have a 3D printer, printing something like this, which will allow you to attach this extension on, and it moves your hose over to the side, out of the way, so it won't interfere with your boards. I built the base for this recently, and there is a video on this, and it solves two problems for me. First, this planer is super, super heavy, and picking it up and moving it around is dangerous, especially if you have a bad back like I do. And second, I needed a spot for my sander. This is the rigid oscillating sander, and I didn't have a good location. Of course, I'm cramped as it is in here, so I thought that having this open location underneath, I could wheel this thing in and out when I need it, and I built it so that it's on a motorcycle lift, and I can raise it to the maximum height, which for me is just fine, and I can use it, and when I'm done with it, I can just tuck it away and it's out of the way again. I really do like the oscillating sander that Rigid makes, but the only problem I have with it is the dust collection is awful. It has a dust port, but it does absolutely nothing. So if you have one of these, or I'm going to get one of these, I would recommend, if you have a 3D printer, printing this. I showcased this in a previous video. This thing catches more than 90% of the dust that comes off of this machine. You don't even need to hook up your hose to the actual dust port that it comes with. Use this, it is amazing. If you don't have a 3D printer, you may be able to find some options available either on Etsy or on Amazon. Check it out because this is a game changer, especially if you're as concerned about dust as I am. Now, this is the first bandsaw I ever bought, and it's also the first tool that I ever had that required a base. And I bought this years ago, before YouTube, before I lived in this home. And it's not very powerful, but it's powerful enough to cut through softwood. So a lot of times I use it when I'm trying to make a template or something like that. So it does come in handy, especially because I can keep a much smaller, thinner blade on this one, and my other larger bandsaw usually has like a resaw blade on it. Now, I made this base for the bandsaw not too long ago, and it solved another big problem for me. I had saw blades everywhere. I had bandsaw blades for both the larger one and the small one everywhere, and I just didn't know what to do with them. So this was my solution, coming up with a base with lots of small, thin drawers where I can just slide the blades in and kind of have an idea of where everything is. This is my makeshift router table, and believe it or not, this is an IKEA butcher block, and I use this in my kitchen in my old home. This has been converted into this router table for now. I do plan on building a real router table with a fence and everything one day because I really do find myself needing this a lot more than I thought I ever would. Underneath I have a Bosch router, and it's been great. I mean, it's a very reliable router. I have the plunge base for it, which I really rarely use, but if I need it, it's there. And it was a very affordable price at the time at under $200, so I can't complain. Now, I think the most transformative project that I've ever done in this shop is building these shop cabinets. I mean, before these cabinets, this shop was a disaster and there was no organization. You couldn't make sense of anything. And now it's nice and clean. And for the most part, I do have a decent system in place. I mean, I could have these cabinets a little bit more organized, but at least there's no more clutter like there used to be. There is a video on these, and there are plans also available if you wanted to build these. What I actually wanted to do when I built these was be able to utilize what's underneath here in a way where I can store these clamps, which were always all over the place before I had this, and also some power tools. And so I built them with some kind of a recess here where I could, use that space. So starting from the left, I have these bars hanging here from these little 3D printed holders to hold my spring clamps. I have my F clamps here as well. I know I don't have that many clamps. I know people tend to have a lot of clamps, and I have found situations where I just don't have enough. But right now, this is what I'm dealing with. Here are some other clamps as well. If you move over here, and I'm hanging them as well. I had to lower it a little bit because these are a little bit thicker. Now moving over to the next segment of cabinets, these are where some of my cordless tools are, and these are my drills. These are 3D printed drill holders, and they have been awesome, and I love these. I actually sell these on my Etsy site, so if you are interested in something like this, assuming you have a 3D printer, you can check those out. I have a couple of these tools hanging upside down. They hang right from here. These brackets, you can find them online for free if you go to some of these 3D print websites for DeWalt tools, and you can just print them and screw them into any underside of a cabinet like this. Moving over to this last little segment here, this is my charger, which I 3D printed a little bracket to keep it in position, so that way it's out of the way, constantly plugged in, and when I want to charge something, I just set it up like that and we're good to go. And then we're done. These are 3D printed holders specifically for DeWalt batteries, and this is what I use to store my extras. These are inexpensive tracks from my track saw. The brand is PowerTech, and as you can see, you get what you pay for because the sliders are already coming off, and these aren't even that old. The good thing is these holders. These are 3D printed track holders, and they've been great. It gives me a place to put these where they won't get damaged, and they're out of the way and easily accessible. The track saw that I'm using is a Wen, and it's terrible, and I'll get into that maybe in a separate video, but don't go that cheap. I mean, that's really the cheapest thing I've found on the market, and it's really something that it wasn't worth the money. So this is the workbench area, and this is the first part of this shop that I actually built, even before I thought about having a YouTube channel. It's become kind of a catch-all for everything. I don't usually work here, usually because it's too messy, but it's nice to have the space when it's clean. The wall itself, it's nice that I have some tools hanging up, but I don't like having too many things on the wall because I feel like it gets busy and it doesn't look good. And I'm planning on changing this whole thing up. I'm not sure what I want to do yet, but I want to make it look nicer. Maybe put a TV up, I don't know. One of the things that has worked well for me here is all these magnetic strips, because I have Allen keys up there and I have all different drill bits that I don't use that often and I wouldn't know where else to put them. But this could be better. This space could be better for me. I designed the top two drawers on each side to be able to fit these containers perfectly. Now this is actually 26 inches deep. And of course they're so deep because I had to get around what was behind this wall here. These are Harbor Freight containers. You can get like 20 of these for like, or 25 of them for like $12. So I got a bunch of them. And this is how I stay organized with my small parts. I have the same thing kind of going on here in the second drawer. And it really helps. It definitely helps. Without this, I don't know what I would be doing with all these parts. And of course, they're also very accessible, which kind of is the whole point of having a nice organized workshop. These lower drawers, not as organized. I still got to work on this one, trying to figure out what to do here. There's a lot of fasteners, tape, a couple of hand tools in here. This one is all paint related stuff, and it was better organized at one time. It's a bit messy now, and I just think I have too much stuff in here, so I need to rethink this a little bit. But you know, at least it's all in one spot, which is already an improvement from where I used to be. Now I really love this wall, but to be honest, there is no reason why I should have a dartboard here or this basketball hoop, because I should be making better use of the space in the shop. And so I think that's going to change very soon. But this area right here, I think is a really good use of space. I have all of my straight edges, my measuring tools, levels, all really in one space and easy to get to. And I think that has been huge for me. Pull saws on a magnetic strip, and this saw right here, this actually belonged to my grandfather. It has a little sentimental value, and I actually do use it sometimes, but I generally use these more often. If I'm cutting something larger, this tends to be my go-to if I have to do it by hand. I made this whiteboard years ago, one of the first projects on the channel, and it comes in handy when I have to remember numbers and measurements and things like that. So I use it all the time. In fact, I haven't erased it. This is from the last project I did. these are my radius jigs. I have them in 1/4-inch intervals. They stack into each other, and of course they're on these hangers. They're awesome. I don't use them that much, but when I am building something that needs a radius on its corners, this makes it very easy. I actually sell the files to print these, so if you have a 3D printer, I'll put the link down below and you can check that out if you want to print these on your own. Now remember, behind this wall I have a fireplace, which is why it comes out so much, and I had to work around that. So that's why this whole area of the shop is built the way it is. This is part of my miter saw station. This provides a ledge where I can cut longer strips of material down. I have my stop block here with measuring tape here to get my repeated cuts if necessary. Underneath I had just enough room to fit small sized paint cans and stain, and so this has worked out pretty nice for me, and I also like the way it looks. I mean, otherwise I don't really know what you could do with such a thin area, thin type of cabinet like this. Now underneath was a very large unused space which I turned into a giant drawer. This is where I keep all my toolboxes, a lot of my construction stuff, major home improvement tools, framing guns, electrical equipment, plumbing equipment, things like that. And it can handle a lot of weight because I doubled up on the drawer slides on each side. I designed these drawers with the intention of keeping accessories for my table saw in this top drawer here. And then the rest of these are perfect for 1-gallon sized paint containers. And that's kind of what I have going on with all 3 of these drawers, although my paint collection is looking a little old these days. Now this is the base of the right side of the miter saw station, and I never really finished it, and I really should, but I haven't, and so it's kind of a bit of a mess, sort of. But these drawers are very important to me because they really do give me a space to store all of this kind of stuff. I have electrical wire and extension cords in here, and this one is where I store everything pipe clamp related, and some nails. I have cabinets on both the right and left side of this miter saw station. This here has become primarily a place where I store jigs and things like that, and templates as well. This is a handle jig, for example, which I probably, when I need it, won't remember it's in there, but it's a really thin space. Not exactly sure how else to make use of this right now. Now on this side, I actually have 2 drawers inside of here, and I store 2 circular saws. One is a corded, one is a not corded, and up top here I have a jigsaw and my DeWalt sander. This is my miter saw station, and I did build this before I had a channel, along with the Workbench that we just talked about. It's awesome. It really is. I mean, I use this thing all the time for the more intricate things that I do in here, and also like the construction projects that I do outside. It makes things so much faster to have a stop block so you can make repeated cuts over and over again. The problem is this is the worst saw on the planet. This is a rigid saw. This is that compound sliding saw. I think it's the R4221. You could make cuts up to 15 inches on this, and that's great. It just, there's wobble. I can't get accurate cuts. I always have to check it for square, and it doesn't stay in square. And eventually I am going to get rid of this thing. At the time, I couldn't afford anything else. To get something this size, under $400, this was the only machine available. So at the time that was an issue. I think now I could up the ante and spend a little bit more money and get something a little bit better. Now the actual miter saw station is awesome. I can actually cut pieces that are 16 feet long because I can actually extend it onto this work surface here because it does come out a little bit. However, I would have to remove the stop block because it doesn't go that far back. The actual shroud works very well in keeping the fine dust in and into my dust collector. It doesn't do a great job of sucking all the dust into the dust collection because it ends up being a little bit too heavy for such a large space. Let me show you what I mean. Now, unfortunately, the way I designed this thing, I kind of made a little bit of a mistake. So I have to actually open these cabinets in order to be able to open these up all the way because they interfere with each other. So here we go. And here it is. This is what it looks like in here right now. I haven't cleaned it out in a while. It does keep all the big stuff in there. It just doesn't all go into the dust collector. If I had to guess, I would say 20% of it goes into the dust collector and the rest of it just sits in there. The fine dust stays out of the shop, that's the most important part. There are a few limitations with my setup though. Unfortunately, I wanted to keep the opening as small as possible. So if I want to make any kind of angled cut, it will interfere with the door here. So I usually open these up when I'm making a cut that's angled. The other limitation I have with my setup is this dust collector is in the path of any material that's on this side of the saw. So after about 42 inches or so, it's gonna hit the dust collector and it's a problem, which means that if I'm gonna use the miter saw station, then I have to remove this so that I can have the material hanging off the end here. And I do that all the time, unfortunately, but there was really no other way for me to work around this. There is no better spot, at least at the moment, for this dust collector. So I'm kind of stuck with what I have here. I hope that one day I find a solution and I can make this a little bit better because again, this interferes with my workflow big time. Above the miter saw station has become pretty valuable real estate in the shop, except that I can't go all the way up to the ceiling because I have the garage door that opens up and we don't want to interfere with that. I have a biscuit here, which is still a couple of years away from drying out. I'm looking forward to doing something with this and you'll probably see it on this channel when I do. I have a couple of toolboxes. I have a grinder, which I've never really used. But one of the things that I really found useful is storing my small pipe clamps here, and I have longer ones all the way in the back that run this way. So that's really the only space in this garage that I can find where they're out of the way, especially since I don't use them that often. So this is the heart of the dust collection set up in my garage. This is the Grizzly 0848ZP. This was the best deal at the time that I could find with the canister filter. It was $500 plus the shipping and tax. It came out to almost 700 bucks. This is a lot more money now. I think it starts at $750 and then you have to add tax and shipping. So you're gonna be close to $1,000 for the same thing. It's crazy, but that's just the reality of what's happened in the world over the last few years. I have liked this system generally, but if I could go back and money wasn't as much of an issue, I would love to have something without the bag at the bottom. Changing the bag out is a nightmare. And if I could get something with a metal storage bin that can easily be removed and dumped and then attached quickly, that would be something I would really love to have. My dust collection is set up in a way where it splits off right away, pretty close to the dust collector, so that it provides dust collection to the table saw and the miter saw. And then it runs up through the attic all the way around and down to this other end of the shop. I've installed 3 of these ball valve blast gates and they are awesome. Now you can buy things like this, but they're really, really, really expensive. I think they're like 60 bucks a piece. These I 3D printed and it only cost me a few bucks. I have these in my dust collection 3D print video, which I will link below. These are free. I found the files online. I have them linked in the description of that video so you can check them out. But it's pretty easy. These just turn. There's a ball in there. Right now it's closed. When they're in the vertical position, it's open. And it allows me to easily connect everything. See, this is what I like about it. These pipes, these are 4-inch PVC pipes, I always had a hard time getting them tight and connected to whatever blast gate I was using. But these are really, really perfectly sized so they fit nicely. Now I know you've seen something like this in other videos. This is a quick connect, and I know Rockler sells them, but I actually 3D printed this and the file was available online for free as well. And there's a whole bunch of cool stuff in that video. Even the connection here, there's no clamp. This is a screw-on connection. So if you want to check that out, go to that video with all the dust collection stuff. It's pretty cool. Now this is really efficient because I can just quickly just hook this thing up, no clamps needed, and I got a nice seal. Now I bought this kit on Amazon. The brand is Centec, and it's pretty cool because it comes in a long hose and it has all these different sized attachments which allow me to connect to my power tools when I need the dust collection there. I made this on a previous video. just to kind of organize myself, and I really like this because otherwise this would probably be thrown in some drawer and be all over the place. Up above here I have an air filtration system by Wen. It is perfect for this space. I think it ran me about 170 bucks at the time, and it really does make a difference. It helps, it definitely helps. Check the description of this video for links to some of the plans that I have, links to the videos for some of the shop projects that I've done here. Also check for the links to the videos for the 3D printed parts videos that I've done. In those descriptions, you can find the links to a lot of the things that I showed you here that I printed. Most of those are free. If you have any questions, put those in the comments. If you're new to the channel, please check out my other videos. And if you like what you see, please think about subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one, everyone. I'll see you soon.